once we've got the budget, once you've got the buy-in, we're at the start line, right? So we just spent all this time getting everybody to the start line. Now we have to make it work. We've actually got to get the organization to adopt it. We've got to give the tools to the team to be able to enable them to use it. And these are complex systems. How do we do all that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of pieces of this. One is, from a sort of the perspective of the team looking out, you've got to, think about iteration, right? And how do we not try and work towards this critical mass that we need to enable? Like, how do we create some opportunities to engage real stakeholders and create a culture of dialogue and feedback? Because we know that just like your toddlers at home, no one in the professional world wants to just be told what to do because this is how we do it now, right? If you can create some meaningful back and forth, that'll help guide you towards where are the nearest points of value we can create and how do we start to kind of test them with individual teams. But there's some things to think about here that some of them are about kind of basic human psychology, and Simon Sinek talks about this, and sort of crossing the chasm with the enablement theory in terms of creating some FOMO, right? I'm going to go to a smaller group at first and say, I want to enable you to be really successful with this thing. And it's not going to be the highest profile group necessarily. And it's certainly not going to be a broad group, because the broad groups will say, I'll it's going to be like the security training they have to do, right? Like nobody wants to do that. If you start to create the small group and say, hey, we're going to enable you, maybe it's the finance team that gets no love and you help them redo the homepage of something and it's just awesome, right? You got a case study, you had an opportunity to learn, you start to share that, and suddenly everyone's like, well, I want my things to go better and be better, right? Yeah. So it takes being cognizant and intentional about this willingness to be iterative and mold your priorities, like we talked about a minute ago, to the things that are going to be most effective, not this ideal. It also takes really understanding your audience, right? And knowing who are these potential adopters. Again, don't go for the flagship thing that has all the eyes on it. Find someone at some group that is willing to work with you, that's appreciative of the help, and that has, ability for you to demonstrate and learn. And sort of, you're going to go from this place where you're very white glove, very hands-on, to where you start to build more successes and you start to be a little bit more hands-off because you can go broader. And then your focus is on, broader community building and sharing. Right. But teams that again start with this ideal, and we need these are the few components, and we need to get everyone to use these, and then like it's a really rough road versus kind of matching your strategy to the realities of your product or your resources, your priorities.
So what I'm hearing is a land and expand type approach, where you find those individuals that can essentially prototype it within your organization, build an internal marketing story from that, use that as your internal customer to then advocate or evangelize the benefits of the design system, and start to then expand through the organization. That has, based on what you've told me, both the benefit of being able to, land on something that's reasonably sized so that you're not biting off more than you can chew, but also has the benefit of you kind of working out the kinks. Like, kind of reading into what you're saying here, but it sounds like if you're going to do that, you're not going to at least, have the big problems be at the biggest level. There are going to be little problems that you've already sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And we have, you're absolutely. I lost my thought there. Right. So we have, I get so you make so many thoughts go through my mind around, the conversations that I have on a day-to-day basis. Because the teams they're going for this broad change, the sweeping change, right? Like it's just unrealistic. And really what we're doing is, there's a lot of opinions of whether or not a design system is a product, but the product owner mentality is huge, right? Yep. The ability to say, like, very few of us have the opportunity to pour a ton of resources into a product and go really broad with a launch, and very few should, right? Most of us, what we do is we find what's the closest circle of probably friends and family. And how do we get some feedback and some learning, right? And how do we do a few experiments in a little broader way? How do we get to like things like a true alpha beta round, and get to a place where adoption is, we want to ensure our own success to the extent we can, right? And so you do that by having this iterative mentality, this testing mentality, and a real clear idea of what is the right audience that, will help you achieve that type of approach.
Yeah, I like that. It's similar to this idea around product testing. When you take a small cohort, you get buy-in, you fix the bugs, you make sure that it's working, and then you slowly expand from there. So yeah, love to hear that.